What's going on, everyone? Zav here, bringing you a video to talk about Elyon and the current state of it in KR. I wanted to make this video just to keep people up to date with changes that have happened with the game. A lot of people seem to think that what we experienced in CBT1 is representative of what the game state is going to be like for us come release. And that's just not the case at all. CBT2 alone is going to be on the Slayer patch, and Slayer is multiple patches ahead of what we played in CBT1, and there were a lot of changes since then alone. CBT1 was a very old, flawed version of the game. There were a lot of things wrong with Elyon in that patch, and many of those things have been changed since then. And so that's pretty much what we're just going to talk about today. I just want to talk about a lot of big things that have changed with the game since then, just so that people are a little more informed and up to date with what has happened with the game and what to expect more so along the lines for their experience going into CBT2 as well as potentially release. That being said, let's jump into it. One of those first big things is that if you actually open up the window here, the RVR battle event is no longer available. As you can see, it is not here. That big event that everybody did on the weekend with the robots and the giant generals, as well as the Laurel Wreath of Greed that makes you hostile to your own faction. Those are simply not in the game currently. Those were removed a few weeks ago from Korea. It seems to be that they're working to implement a new PvP event instead of that one. I'm not sure what the reason was that they took it out. I'm sure there were many things wrong with it, including the way people signed up for it and got rewards for it, or balancing issues, things like that. But you know, in the AMA they talked about an SVS PvP event. I can only assume that that is a server v server. Otherwise, I don't know what SVS stands for in that situation. But so as of right now, none of that is in the game. So don't necessarily expect that in our build unless they add something new in the meantime, in which then, hey, who knows? We're still many months away from our release of the game. So that's one of the first big things for people to just understand that is not in the current version of the game in KR. Now, one of the other big changes is the dungeon system, as well as the dungeon loot tables. So first thing you'll notice if you open up the dungeon table is that there's now 3 categories instead of 2. On CBT1, there was just the normal dungeons, in which the Transcendence dungeons were categorized along with it, and then Time Attack dungeon was its own. This is all of the solo dungeons. None of that's really changed. You do get a dungeon ticket item now at the end of every dungeon run, and that is just something that you can accrue over time to buy pieces of gear directly for yourself. I don't have any on me currently, but if you right click it, oh no, I have 30 right here. You right click it, you can just directly buy pieces, including breakthrough pieces or even potentially purple breakthrough pieces right here. You can buy 1 per day. And this lets you select a breakthrough piece from the chest here. Not normal dungeon gear though. So this is something that's changed with the dungeon system alone as well. But even more so than that, Transcendence dungeons, this is your Hall of Challenge. This was the thing people did the first time on CBT1, where the ring was on like floor 25. Now it's on floor 10. They've consolidated the floors a little bit and made the floors even harder. But you get certain rewards a lot earlier that were on CBT1. And on top of that, now there are multiple other dungeons here, as you can see, that you do for Transcendence dungeons that give you a large variety of other rewards. So they added in a bunch of other solo dungeon content outside of just the Hall of Challenge that you had. And the way you get access to them are these dungeon entry fragments, which you can buy here from your Laurel Wreaths. You can buy 2 per day, and so that is one of the ways in which you can get access to those dungeons. And then the other big thing that's changed with the dungeons, all right, many of you know that some of the way those people on CBT1 made a lot of gold and got such high item level, aside from good RNG, those people were in statics, they rushed to 40, and they ran the level 40 dungeons. In CBT1, the level 40 dungeons only had one difficulty, and they gave guaranteed breakthrough gear, and that breakthrough gear was capable of being posted on the auction house. So people made a lot of gold off of that in CBT1. You can't do that in the current version of the game. The loot tables for dungeons have changed dramatically. The level 40 version dungeons don't even give breakthrough gear anymore at all. And all the dungeons have been given 5 difficulties that unlock based on your level. So you actually do not even get access to breakthrough gear until you go to the second step, the second difficulty of a dungeon, and that is at level 42. But even then, it's not guaranteed breakthrough gear. It's just added to the loot table. The only way to get guaranteed breakthrough gear is by buying it with your dungeon reward tickets as you stack them up. But, you know, when everybody's able to do that without even necessarily getting it as a reward, you know, the value of it will be down to a degree. But, you know, you can't just rush it early on like you were able to in CBT1. It's not guaranteed to get the reward from it. However, they have added many other things to the dungeon loot table, including but not limited to +3 enhancement stones from the first dungeon. And then at level 5, they've actually gone ahead and they've added yellow gear. This is a very recent addition. Nobody saw this at all in CBT1. This is the current highest form of gear that people are able to attain on Korea. And so that has now been added to the loot table as well. Along with the gearbox. The gearbox gives you gear currency or cog currency, whatever you want to call it, or even just items that come from that cog shop, which you can see right here, the gear shop. These items, all these items are thrown into that box, as well as cog currency. So that's something that they've added to the loot table as well in the dungeons. That being said, they are also adding the 20-man raid. The 20-man raid is going to have 2 difficulties. It's going to have a, you know, learning basic version that will be doable by pugs, and then it's going to have a hardcore version that is going to hopefully require a coordinated, organized group of, you know, capable, you know, capacity, being able to down it in an efficient manner, not just a ragtag group of randoms. That is their goal. They want to have it be really challenging for people and reward them accordingly for its difficulty. So hopefully that goes the way they want. But yeah, that's just one of the big things. Dimension portals. All right. Now, dimension portals, this is another one that's changed. Okay. You still have your weekly 10 hours of dimension portal. All right. But those are certain dimension portals that function on the time window basis. So you can see those here. However, a lot of these other dimension portals, all right, there's a lot more now. These ones are open 24 hours a day, and they have their own separate entry time right here that you can see at the top. You get 1 hour per day in these regardless. So 1 hour per day in these early dimension portals that you had access to originally on CBT1. And you can go into them at any time you want. It doesn't matter when. And remember, you can leave them and go back into them as well, and it just keeps the amount of time that you spent in there before. And then the other ones, your weekly 10 hours, those happen on a timely basis. They happen 6 times a day. So they are frequent, but not always available. Okay, so a little more flexibility on the dimension portals have been added, as well as the loot that can be obtained from them. They've upped the drop rate on items in there, as well as the mobs now also drop gold, whereas in CBT1 they just gave mana XP and regular XP. They now also drop gold so that you're not losing out on making money while you're spending time inside them. So big changes there with the dimension portals. Another thing with the dimension portals, the mana tree system changes. All right, the mana tree now uses 5 mana per tree point, and then 25 on the big nodes. And so, you know, in that regard, though, the amount of mana you gain is in larger amounts, but the amount of XP, or how long it takes to get a level, is increased as well. So overall, you still see about the same kind of progression. It's just done in a different fashion. Also, the mana tree does change every 3 months. So the mana tree that you had in CBT 1 probably will not be the same mana tree that you see in CBT 2, and will not even be the same mana tree that we have on release. So a lot of things there are going to change as well in terms of your character's growth or build, if you will. So just some things to keep in mind. Things are not going to be the same as what you experienced in CBT 1. Another thing that's been introduced into the game recently, we have not gotten any yet. We haven't spent a lot of time on the game since these updates. That is the night gear. They've added night gear is what it's called. Night gear is gear that you can find in dimension portals in the open world, and it is gear that is going to have a guaranteed 5 to 6 enhancement slots. So as you know, gear can have anywhere from 3 to 6 enhancement chances on it. This gear is going to have a guaranteed 5 to 6 enhancement slots on it. Now, it's going to have slightly worse stats than dungeon gear. However, each piece of gear is going to have its own unique fixed effect on it. So that's supposed to be something that helps offset the slightly lower stats. But it's also really nice that these pieces of gear are guaranteed to have 5 to 6 enhancement slots on that. So another system that they've implemented in order for people to, have an easier access to obtaining gear and enhancing as well, things along those lines. Now, one of the biggest changes that has occurred, and part of that is, why the night gear is such a big deal, is they've added a new gear conversion token item into the game that you can craft. All right. And this is a really big one. This removes a lot of RNG for people and adds a, long-term definitive grind goal available to them. Okay. And if we go all the way down to the bottom here, there are now items that you can make. All right. You've got to farm the material for it, and they are very expensive. All right. But it adds a level of definitiveness to your progression. All right. This lets you now convert a plus 10, plus 12, whatever your enhancement is, purple, directly into that same enhancement level, yellow. So you are able to directly raise the grade of your gear to the next grade from purple to yellow while retaining the enhancement on it, right? So before, you had to go through the old method here, which was converting it from a plus 10 purple, and then it went and became a 0 yellow. All right. Well, now they've added in the availability for you to just directly go from a plus 10 purple to a plus 10 yellow. And that's a really big deal because that eliminates that second layer of RNG there. So first you had to hit all your enhancements when it was a purple piece of gear in order to upgrade it to yellow. And then once it went yellow, you had to then hit all your enhancements back up again in order for that yellow gear to be good. Now you can just directly carry over that enhancement, and so that is a really nice addition to the game. It just adds, a nice level of definitiveness to your progression, removing some of that punishing RNG that is present throughout the game. We all know it's there. The RNG can be very punishing, but some of these things make it a lot easier to deal with, right, if you will. So that's just a really big thing that I think is a huge part in terms of people being able to progress their gear long term. It is really expensive. You can do it for breakthrough gear as well. Breakthrough gear is even more expensive, obviously. You can see right here, it's a 1 million gold just to make the item, and then you need plus 3 stones and a bunch of other items as well that go along with it. So not easy, but it is definitive. So it's nice that there's something that you can work towards and have guaranteed progress contributing to it. And then that being said, the last thing that they've added in since then is you are able to have another breakthrough piece upon hitting level 47. So people can now wear up to 4 breakthrough pieces. Originally, it was just 3. And they've added a belt slot for your gear slot. And then they've added a new ability that everybody's able to use. It's a chain lightning skill. But it costs like 10 million gold to, buy the book for it, and you have to be level 48. So long ways away in that regard. We don't have access to it, but those are just a lot of the really big things that have changed with the game compared to what people played on CBT1. That doesn't even touch everything that's gone on with it, from the honor system to the way people's classes abilities have changed. Going over all the abilities that have changed for the classes would just be a super long video for each individual class, because there have been a lot of things that have changed. Just to give an example, Warlord's chain pull, that alone, Warlord chain pull can now pull targets regardless of if they're in invincibility, defense, or using an evasion skill. So basically, a Warlord can chain pull you no matter what now. It's guaranteed. So things like that, and that, there have been changes like that to multiple skills on multiple classes. So that's just too much to go over all at once. But so, I'll let you guys all deal with that on CBT2 and figuring out your class, because you're going to want to do that for all the slayers that are going to be running around. But yeah, going forward, I want to try to keep up to date for you guys. Everything that changes in KR, we will still be playing KR in our off time while we wait for CBT2, as well as other games. We've got Solo coming out, PSO2, a lot of other things that are going to be going on. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I just wanted to talk to you about some of the major things that have changed with the game in general, and looking forward to playing CBT2 with all of you. And be sure to drop us a follow over on Twitch at twitch.tv/zav_, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Have a good one. Peace.